Yes.
I know we've got a couple of things other than this to deal with. All right, so I'm going to call the meeting to order at was it 11:03? President Bill McGowan, Lisa McGonigal, Rod Hoffman, Dan Conklin, Wayne Sawchuk, Paul Kears. So I guess our first order of business is Chief Justice Cushing Highway.
Hi, members of the board. Jeff DeLisi here on behalf of the property owner at 38400 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. And I believe Mark Negrati, our engineer, is with us, as well as Mr. Stasko. Essentially, Attorney Hoffman and myself have exchanged some correspondence trying to narrow the issues. And Rod, perhaps you can explain to me where we are at on that. I understand things have kind of trickled in a little bit. We were under a bit of a time crunch, and so I'm just not sure where we're at as far as that draft document is concerned.
Well, I think there were some technical issues, and I had referred them to Dan. He looked at them. I haven't sent him your email from Friday afternoon, which resolves, I think, a couple of them. I think the main issue is the prevailing wage issue and the way you attempted to draft it around it. And I responded on Friday that as counsel to the commission, I'm not comfortable with that. I think what's state interpretation of the statute is if there are town funds that are going into the construction, one way or the other, prevailing wage must be paid. As a town entity, we're not. We're going to turn square corners on interpreting the statute. So I think what we had before that anticipates prevailing wage and a credit up to 50% is what I understand where the commission has been, and we haven't been convinced to change that.
We just received, 5 minutes ago from Dawn, some answers, and I don't know if everybody has seen that yet.
No.
So it came in at 10:55 this morning. It says, I talked to Rod and he may have my concerns. However, they were, and number 2 is section 2.3. And so I don't know if you can look at that now and see.
Wait, Wayne, who? Don? You said Don, like Don Stasko?
No. Donald Piet.
Oh,
our person in the accounting department.
Oh, I see that he's on the call today. I might add, but okay. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything to add about that because I haven't seen that.
Don's email this morning was following my conversation with him, and I basically relayed a couple of points, including this one on the prevailing wage, and he is satisfied on that, consistent with the position I've described. The other issue I asked him about was what's an appropriate interest rate, and Jeff, you had suggested perhaps basing it on the town borrowing rate. Don said that is currently at 4%. I had in the draft used prime rate, which is 3.25 plus 2.
Yeah, I mean 4%. If that's currently the rate, rather than having it float around for 20 years, probably makes sense just to write a number in. I'm more of a fan of that. So I'm perfect. I think that that would be sufficient for Mr. Stasko.
I had drafted it as the current prime rate fixed for 20 years. So
Well, isn't prime rate different than the town's borrowing rate?
yes,
Okay.
Coming back.
So would there be a reason to go above the town's borrowing rate? Like what?
So if I could just make the comment as to the prime rate, again, is something that Paul Kears had recommended at one point based on some other dealings he's had with state agencies to be consistent. This is somewhat of a precedent-setting, agreement for developments. And so it made sense to go with something that could be consistent from development to development if we agree to do payment terms in the future. So as Rod noted, it's the current prime rate plus 2% is what was initially in there. So it wouldn't be a floating prime rate. We wouldn't be readjusting the payment terms over 20 years. It would just be what the prime rate is now plus 2%. And then that could be consistent with, X, Y, Z property developer comes down in 5 years, that prime rate plus 2%. So I just wanted to give a little context as to.
Paul, thank you very much, Don. I appreciate it. Paul, are you able to explain what your reasoning was for the suggestion of prime plus 2? I think Don might have just mentioned that it could be based on some other experience that you might have involving similar situations.
Right. So I've dealt with a lot of state agencies from my business perspective, not town business. And a lot of the agencies I've dealt with, specifically Mass Development, when they come in and they help developers finance development, in order not to compete with banks, they lend at the same rate plus a percentage over prime so that they're not competing with banks. So when initially speaking with Don Piot about, this is kind of outside of normal business for the town of Cohasset, he was kind of looking to see where there was already precedent set on borrowing or lending by the town. And so I had suggested Mass Growth Capital Corporation as well as Mass Development. There was another one called Property and Casualty Initiative that also does similar lending. But those are the ones I've had experience with, and those were always at a rate plus something like 2%. I know Mass Growth is somewhere around 5%. So that's where that came from, because we were trying to figure out how the town could structure a payment plan with somebody on a project such as this.
So, Paul, I guess where I'm grappling on that particular issue is in the situation that we're dealing with here at 380-400 in the sewer line. I think that this particular circumstance should be recognized such that it's essentially a secured loan for the town in a certain circumstance, because if you have the ability to, if any payment is not made, we have a payment bond, which we've agreed to. So since we have a payment bond, I'd ask you maybe to think about it without having to add the 2%. I just don't see a reason to do that with the payment bond in place, because the town is certainly going to get paid as a result of that, in a worst case situation.
Well, it's something that Don could speak to, but I'm satisfied that if a bond is in place and then the asset is conveyed to the town within the year, then I don't know of any other reason to charge the additional 2% if the bond is in place. This is merely going to be a pass-through. It's technically a fee that he's paying to the sewer commission. So it's not like he's borrowing money to construct the sewer line. So it would be separate. So I would consider waiving the 2%. I would seem to think that the 4% should stay in place, though.
Yeah, I'm in favor with 4% as a flat rate, because, you know, we're going to be gone in 10 years or 15 years, and you know, the interpretation of this document should be fun for whomever replaces us. So I think the simpler we can make it, the better.
Okay, I agree. I agree with that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then on the prevailing wage issue, I've had multiple correspondence with Rod on this. I think we have a fundamental disagreement. I don't see that there is any payment by the town, any funds from the town going into the contractors for this project. This is a privately funded situation with a private line while it's being constructed. There is no guarantee that anyone else is going to hook in, and there's a cap on that. So the way I had just explained to the board, the way I had proposed to kind of get around it was to not call out in the agreement why the possibility of having others connect in be reimbursed ultimately to the developer. Rather, just to bring a flat number to it, call it a number. I had proposed 700,000. And then basically then there's nothing in the face of the agreement that is a reimbursement at all or an acknowledgement at all of the town building this. In fact, the town's not building it, right? That's what the whole agreement's about, is Donald's building it, and the money that the town is accepting as its connection fee is not being utilized to reimburse the town any of its costs in the construction of that line. So to me, I think it's kind of an easy call to just leave prevailing wage out. Now, if there's a circumstance where somebody, and my understanding, and Rod, you can correct me on this, is that when there is a dispute, if there is a dispute with the issue by, in real time, whether it involves, the town or a contractor or a union, that dispute, the Division of Labor is there to process any request for an opinion, and the Attorney General were to do that. So I think that, we can keep, for the time being, prevailing wage out of it. And if there's an issue in the future that needs to be addressed, it gets addressed.
I tend to agree with Jeff, because I think that putting something in can be interpreted by everybody that has anything to do with the project. It could be all of a sudden now that the engineer has to pay prevailing wage. It now is the person supplying something else has got to do it, and all this other stuff. And I don't think that's that either the town or the developer wants to get involved with all of those things, which will happen if we start interpreting it ourselves as far as what should be done and what should not be done.
Right, and I'll add to that, Wayne, that I agree that the board, it's not our place to tell people how they should do things. And if prevailing wage is in or out, I don't really care one way or the other. What bothers me is that the last time we met, we voted and approved the 20-year 50%. I do not want to see the 700 grand get in there, because the three of us on this board will be skewered by the vitriol that's floating about this, and everyone knows it. So I would much rather keep the 50%, 20 years, and leave it at that. Don't put a cap, don't put anything, and no union.
Okay, we'd be okay with that. And then other than that, I think most of what Rod and I had engaged in back and forth, really, I thought were kind of not larger issues, but kind of more detail-oriented things that I just haven't heard any feedback on, but I'm assuming there was an issue. I was concerned in particular about a particular paragraph that required an evaluation of downstream sewer, and then a requirement that my client pay, fees to upgrade potentially, anything downstream, including potentially the wastewater treatment facility itself. So I think that there was a way to kind of hone that in and view it from the standpoint of, what it would have to be a direct impact, because ultimately the amount of flow that we would be sending to, to the system, is a relatively small amount. The way I tackled it was adding language that it would need to be direct impact, and that if there is a requirement to upgrade because there is an impact, some kind of pipe or something to that effect, that any of the fees is tackled proportionately to the amount of flow that goes through that system. So that's how at least I viewed it. But I really hadn't heard anything.
But a lot of this stuff, I think, came in over the weekend, if I'm looking at
Yes.
the dates, and even today.
My apologies, Mr. Chair.
And,
This-
What section and paragraph, Jeff, is that?
I'm looking at page, let me see here. I'm looking at page 4 of the 7/28/21 agreement. Section, I think it's 1.2C, no, 1.2.5, I think, whatever, section 5 regarding the SCADA system.
Yeah, no, it was really, I think the SCADA system was separate. It was 1.2C was where I was kind of struggling. That was a fundamental issue for me. So I had proposed language, just a proposal, trying to, because I understand that the board's concern is, hey, if what you're doing causes a problem to our system, you should be fixing it. And I understand that, and I'm trying to honor that, keep that, but put some reasonable parameters around it. That's all. I thought that the verbiage was a little too broad the way it was.
Dan saw that comment and responded. Can you?
Yeah, can I just say one thing? I mean, to me, in any kind of a legal document where it says that basically the parties and said evaluation should be shared by the board, developer parties agree in good faith to collaborate to identify, I mean, I don't see it as an overbreadth of us stepping over on somebody. I think that looks like we're gonna, if there is something that's going on, that's how I read it, and I'm not an engineer, so.
I think that was my language, the collaborate stuff. So
Yeah, it is in blue is Jeff's comments that are continued on.
Yeah, I didn't get that one. I didn't get any of the colored comment stuff.
Yeah.
At least
Okay.
yet.
Maybe I just add a little clarification on one of those aspects is the wastewater pumping station that the flow is discharging to. The new connection is basically going to comprise about 1/3 of the flow to that pumping station. That pumping station was recently assessed by Woodard and Curran as far as condition. There's a lot of wear and tear, a lot of little issues that need to be rectified with that pumping station. And that's really from the perspective of the operator, things that need to be done prior to the connection to make sure that that station is reliable enough to take the additional flow.
Dan, what was the split again? 1/3, 2/3?
Yeah, I mean, roughly, they do close to 34,000 gallons per day at the station. So they're adding another 17, basically design flow base. So it's about 1/3.
yeah, and design flow is going to be higher than what it is, no doubt. So, but I do understand that, Dan. I'm just, if that's what you mean by evaluating, the system downstream, then let's just say, have to evaluate that pump station. But that's also what our fees are for, right? I mean, we're paying $1 million something in fees, and it's not reimbursing the board for the cost of any of the infrastructure, as far as I can tell. So that's, to me, that's, well, of course, we're going to evaluate that to make sure it functions properly. But to, if there's wear and tear on there already, it's been, 2/3 used by, well, it's been 100% used by something else. Donald shouldn't have to pay the full cost of all of the upgrades. And so those were kind of fundamentally where I was trying to tackle the language. But I mean, I'm satisfied with it the way I'd proposed it. I just didn't know if the board was.
Yeah, I was just a little, I mean, the language that you put in basically said, a direct result of the flow. And basically, we know the pumping station does need upgrades in order to reliably pump and convey your flow. And that means not only repairs, but upgrades too. Some of the control systems, as far as the level controls, are antiquated. They should be upgraded, again, to increase the reliability of that station. But like I said, I mean, you would be contributing roughly 1/3 of the flow to that station. It's up to the board, how they want to evaluate that.
I would think that the right way to do it would be to assess 1/3 of the cost.
I'd agree with that.
Because while we're doing this, it's going to be, in all likelihood, the results are going to be that it is going to have either, if you keep the flow you have now, you might just improve it to that flow, but we're anticipating not only the flow from these properties, but a potential flow from the line that is serving 380 to 400, which will be in a reimbursement of the developer if that happens, so that it's not really necessarily going to cost them any more sort of in the future. It's actually even a better thing because it's only 1/3 now. It's not, it's not the increase of what it might be. It's only going to be what it will be.
Yeah, and I factored in there a proportionality approach to it. It's fair, and the good news is you guys are asking for a single meter at basically the point of where the flow exits the property. So we're all going to know precisely how much flow actually is going into that pump station from this property, and you already know precisely how much is going into it otherwise. So I think that the proportionality concept works, and we could probably, that seems fair. Again, though, I just wanted to say, I mean, this is a, we're paying a sewer fee, and theoretically, that's a whole concept on a sewer fee is exactly that, is that money gets put back into the system. That's what it's there for. But I think I've said everything.
Jeff, I just wanted to go back to one thing that you did say. It was regarding the meter at the single meter at the edge of the property.
Yeah.
It was never intended that meter would be used for billing purposes. That meter is basically a confirmation of what's being sent, so that we have a good feel that there's no II influences being contributed to the system. No leaky tank, no leaky pipes, that type of thing. We didn't propose to change the billing system the way it currently exists. Currently, it's set up just upon water consumption data. And obviously the water meters are a lot more accurate than a wastewater meter placed on a force main. So we still plan on using the water consumption data for billing purposes. And obviously, if you have exterior water uses, I would recommend, additional meters so that that flow can be deducted as is allowed by the commission. But the single flow meter from the pump station wasn't intended for billing purposes.
Donald, is the irrigation system on a separate water meter?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we could, so all right, so I understand what you're saying, Dan. I just thought that it made sense to, since we're being so precise and accurate, we know exactly what we're putting into the system. The most, that's unusual. It's not often the case. So, we can get a precise number, and I think that's the best way to bill it personally. But
So section 1.2, paragraph C, the suggestion that you have here is that the amount represent the percentage of the flow.
yeah,
Rather than putting in 1/3, we want to leave it as the percentage.
yeah, because we know we're gonna, it could be substantially less, right? I mean,
Or it could be more.
could be more, right? Exactly.
So, Bill and Wayne, are you in agreement with that, leaving it as a percent?
What would that percentage be?
Whatever the meters read, whatever the percentage of flow he has going into the overall veteran station.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're talking about repairs that need to be made before the connection. So, I mean, from the perspective of what he's going to contribute to the system, I'm not sure we know that at this point. And those repairs are going to have to be made now. So,
Right.
in terms of simplifying it for now, I propose just using the design flow and what that station does.
So you want to go with an estimate of 1/3 until actual readings are available?
Well, in the future, I don't have an issue with it, but this is really, what this is referring to is primarily those impacts that are on the system now. And that's really only our concern, is make sure the system can take the flow. And the system downstream is in suitable condition to do that.
So we could, so we could put in there that the amounts represent 1/3 or actual data, if available, of the said flow it introduces into the system.
I think Dan is, I don't even think we're talking about a lot of money. So I just think 1/3 of what we're actually going to spend is better than saying, or at some point in time, you've got this magic other number that we're going to go ahead and recalculate. And now we want some money back, and then we're going to get all confused. I think to get the project to move forward, it should be, this is what it's going to be. I think it certainly, as soon as we get the estimates of what it's going to cost, it's going to make a difference. If the cost to fix it is $50,000, 1/3 of 50,000 might not be worried about, worrying about that. If it's $400,000, then we might have to come back and say, maybe this isn't fair, that because of what it is that we have to do. Dan,
Wayne, you might have been close to the number too.
which one? First one or the second one?
The 50. Sorry.
Okay. Whew.
Yeah, I'm okay with the 1/3. I mean, it does, as Wayne says, it's not a ton of money, so let's just do 1/3 and see what happens. So.
Okay, so in paragraph 1.2C, instead of percentage, it'll say 1/3.
Yeah.
Or 33%.
Okay.
Until actual meter is available, right? I mean, the whole concept here is that we're talking about anticipated repairs that would be necessary, or upgrades that would be necessary prior to putting any wastewater into it, right? So we're doing repairs based on design flow now, but in the future, there could be some issue with that or some other aspect of your system, which I think we still need the proportionality language in.
I think it's one time though, right?
Well, no, I mean, if say that something, a catastrophe of some sort happens at the pump station in 5 years, that should be based on, whatever proportion of the total flow comes from CJC and what, in my opinion. So it should be a percentage of that, no more, no less.
Right, so that's why I stated earlier, 1/3 or actual data, whichever is available, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, if if there's a catastrophe at the system, that's unrelated to this, there should be no obligation for the developer to pay for that at all, that we're already paying for through our connection fee, essentially. But I think you agree with that. You're just talking about if there's a catastrophe because of what we're doing, it should be proportionate, and I do agree with that. So if you guys are okay with 1/3, or if actual meters are available, then that's fine. I get it.
Yeah, we can do that. So Rod, are you documenting any of these changes or?
I'm noting them.
Okay, yeah. So we have so far, we had the straight 4% on the interest.
Yep.
And we initially agreed to have no cap of 700, just the straight 20-year 50%.
Yep.
And then we talked about 1/3 on 1.2C, or actual data when available for the percentage of use.
Could I ask one quick question on that? The no cap on the potential reimburse, however you guys are going to refer to this.
Yep.
How are we not having a cap? So we could potentially end up reimbursing or paying back more than the actual cost or hookup fee? Is that what you're trying to agree to here?
I think the cap was 50%.
So the chairman requested no cap to the 20-year. We know that the hookup fee right now is about 1.6 million or whatever it is. So I don't know that we would collect 50%.
We're not going to collect that amount of money.
I'm not going to collect $3 million and give him 1.6 million back over 20 years. That I would. If we did,
Okay.
it,
Just wanted to ask a question. That was with that wording, I think, part of the prevailing wage issue. So just so you can know, you guys could talk about that with Attorney Hoffman, but I think agreeing to that, paying back money is part of that determination. So,
yeah, if we even without if we leave it without the cap, which is what we discussed doing, then that helps the argument on the prevailing wage too, because we're not right now with prevailing wages is paying on the construction of which we're not. We're taking a fee or a tax, and we're giving financial consideration in the form of a credit to another fee or tax. So I don't get the argument on the prevailing wage at all, and so we're just crediting off until it's paid. You could put language in there if there's no cap that the credit wouldn't exceed, or until the debt is paid or something. But
I'll let Attorney Hoffman handle that for you guys. I just want to make that point.
I mean, otherwise, I didn't see any particular major highlights in the language. If the board is satisfied with the language as most recently suggested by me, otherwise, except for these points, I think we're there.
Yeah, I've gone through the draft has been updated a few times. I was in agreement with it. I think these three changes were really the crux of the whole agreement. Everything else is general text and operational things that we do on a regular basis anyway to facilitate getting this done. So I don't. If we Rod, if we have those three changes, is this something?
Well, there's at least there's one more point I want to raise. In the recitals on page 2, it has always been described as a gravity or a force main, and this most recent revised draft describes it as a gravity system. And I'm not sure that the commission had reached a decision which was the better system.
I thought that, I saw that, but what I believe we had agreed to is that after review by our engineer, there would be a decision made as to whether it's going to be gravity or force main.
Okay, and so I think that this language just changed to describe a sewer line, and
Yeah, it doesn't have to specify either one. And
Or we could just say it might be, subject to engineer review, it may be force main, or maybe, gravity, something like that.
I think for purposes of since it's just a recital, let's just get rid of the word gravity. But on that issue, Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I have Mark Negrotti on with Tetra Tech, and I asked him specifically to look into the issue of gravity versus force main, and I'm sure it would only take him 2 minutes to explain that once again to the board as to why this really should only be a gravity line. Is it okay to just ask Mark to comment on that, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Mark, are you available to say a few words on that issue?
I am. Good morning, everybody. So with this design that we have currently, there's an elevation difference of roughly 28 feet. So elevation drop about 28 feet drop between the Stop and Shop or the backside of the Stop and Shop plaza to the Tupelo Road manhole, invert wise. So our design is based on a gravity system because that is the most simplest, and the system is easy to maintain, and it'd be better off to have a gravity line than a force main. And there are some concerns with having a force main in this particular instance with this elevation drop. It may not work as a force main. At some period of time, it could turn into a gravity line because the pressures and so forth and the volume of water is relatively small. So when this runs out, when the water runs out, it may turn into a gravity line, and this force main will probably be smaller than an 8-inch diameter. So there are some concerns with making this a force main.
That's fine. I think it's just, since it's on us, I think it's in the boards and in the town, or actually in the sewer ratepayers' best interest to have our engineer make that decision. And presuming, he sees the same, I'm no engineer, but presuming he sees the same elevation drop, maybe the same thing will happen. So, but I still think he needs to review the drawings as they come in before a decision is made.
I think if we could, we also had Brian Joyce's opinion on that as well, that Dan had circulated to the rest of us.
Yeah.
What was Brian's opinion, Paul?
Yeah, so for the sewer board, we have a couple of opinions where we're taking a look at force main versus gravity. So I think it'd be a separate meeting for the sewer commission to take up to make a final determination. I don't want it to get in the way of holding up this contract being executed and permits being implemented.
My concern to the engineer is what happens if you come across unforeseen conditions in the distance between the two as you're doing the work, and all of a sudden you're running into a water main that's at the same elevation, and you can't just go down below it and come back up again or go around it. What about those things? The telephone, in other words, are you 100% sure now that you have a clear path from the Stop and Shop to Tupelo Road on one side of the road or the other? Are you going to have to go down and get on one side, go back to the other side, in that 28 feet, it doesn't allow you to go uphill with a gravity line, and it doesn't allow you necessarily to go through something that is already there that was put in correctly, like a concrete bank of 16 conduits that the telephone company has on one side of the road that may be just at that 4-foot depth that you want to be at.
Based on the information that we have right now, we've designed something that could work. Our design does have some test pits in there to confirm the elevations prior to construction of the sewer main, to confirm the existing features in their elevations. So that way we're sure that the gravity system will work. So basically you do the test pit first as part of to confirm the water main elevation, or the telephone duct bank, or a gas main, or the drainage that's associated with the Route 3A Mass Highway work. So you do your test pits first, You confirm those elevations and location. And then if you have to adjust something, you make the adjustment prior to installing the force main. I'm sorry, the gravity line.
How far along are you with getting that information?
Well, we call for that as part of the actual construction work, because sending a crew out there to do test pits and getting an access permit with MassDOT, it's the right way to do that. You do test pits first as part of the application to MassDOT.
How far away are you for that? I mean, that was,
How far away?
yeah, how much time is, I'm just sort of curious of the schedule, you know, is this something that's gonna, you want the permit issued before you're gonna have the final design done? And that's something that I don't think the board would like to do. We'd
Well,
like to
this
see
is-
what is a possible, you know, is this what you want to do?
Yes.
And it
This is a
can't,
very common procedure for MassDOT and the MassDOT projects when you either put in drainage lines, which are gravity lines, and there's other associated utilities. You go out there, you do your test pits in the very beginning of the construction work, you confirm the utility locations and elevations, and then you proceed with the construction work. And if you do need to make an adjustment, you make an adjustment in the early part of the project.
is that because you don't want to spend the money to find out the answer in the beginning?
No, this is a very typical and common procedure how you work with MassDOT. MassDOT has a policy in there. They do test pits to confirm utilities as part of the construction work.
Okay. It just seems to me that it's difficult to approve a design that is going to be based on what side of the road the sewer is going to be on, unless you were on both sides of the road. Or, you know, I would think that Donald would like to know how much it's going to cost, and it's going to depend on what obstructions and stuff you have and how many times you have to go back and forth across the street.
Yeah, we did review, we had a preliminary meeting with MassDOT as part of the access permit application. And then we received positive feedback from MassDOT. They didn't have too many comments on this design.
So Wayne, this point, this discussion is the perfect reason why, we desire to have a gravity line. We think it's the simplest. We also think it allows the most capacity as well for future, and it's probably the best for our budget, frankly. But recognizing that site conditions and issues that we run into might require a force main, right? We're operating on the assumption of gravity. I say let's get the agreement signed, and if there are issues that we run into, we have to deal with them. And if it has to be a force main, then it has to be a force main.
Yeah, my only comment to that would be, rather than, painting either party into a corner, why don't we just say, that it could be either a gravity or force main, subsequent to further, investigations and
Yeah,
research, whatever.
Engineering review. That's
Yeah,
fine.
something like that. So,
Yeah, I think what we do is we write that the developer desires a gravity line, but that it is to be verified, with proper engineering review. I just want to get it out there in words that we prefer it to be a gravity line.
well,
Yeah, for a month.
it's been recorded, so.
Yeah, I mean, you
Okay,
actually think gravity line's going to be a cheaper alternative for you?
I don't know.
I think as long as we have the ability for our engineer to look at it and to give a recommendation to the board, that's all we want.
Yeah, and that's already in the agreement. So.
So they're basically just 4 adjustments here, Rod, that I can tell to the agreement.
So, hi, this is Brian. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm out in a noisy field. Just a couple of points on the construction reimbursement. Is it the 50%? Is that based on construction costs? And how do we track that? And how does the town stay on top of what that construction cost is?
No, it's on.
And number two, Go ahead.
It's on the connection fee. So anybody who connects to the pipe, the sewer board gets 50% and the developer gets 50%, whatever that connection fee is.
Okay, so there's no need for the town to track construction costs.
No.
All right, and then secondly, on the, the upfront capital to fix the pump station, I agree. I forget with whoever said it. I would go with the third, because if you go with the future, meter discharge, wastewater metering is fickle. It's hard to read all the time, and also the usage in the building, it won't be occupied. At what point in time do you take that proportionality? I would just pick a number and go with it. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Does that make sense as a change?
Well, we've already talked about,
1/3.
we've already talked about we've already agreed to the 1/3, which would be the upfront. And then, once a building is occupied and we go to the future, it's a percentage of that.
Right.
Is what we agreed to. So,
Okay.
so we're going to keep it the way it was there, Rod.
Okay.
So with that, is this something you can draft and get a final draft? So Jeff, what do you think you need to do to get this in front of DEP to get the housing counted and?
My understanding is that the town has some deadline. I'm operating under what I believe to be a September deadline to if it's going to reach its safe harbor, so as to prevent other 40B developments, if that's what the effect of it is. We would need occupancy in September. Certainly, we're not going to have a sewer line constructed in September. So we're working with Mass DEP, who is the permit granting authority, in hopes of having Mass DEP approve of a temporary solution of a tight tank on the property. And if that's the case, we're hopeful that we can have that achieved prior to the deadline. And then we're moving along with Mass DOT and any other permitting authority, yourselves, certainly from an engineering review, to finalize the sewer design and begin the construction. I know Senator O'Connor has taken a great interest in this project. It's a win from the state's perspective. And so we've asked him to help us along in the Mass DOT, see if it could be kind of pushed along to move it quicker. So from a timing perspective, I don't know exactly what's going to end up happening, but that's the best I can share with you at the moment as far as what we're looking at. As far as this is concerned, it's a matter of record as to what these 4 changes are. I think that Rod and I could agree on the language, and I don't think that you even need a new meeting. If Rod tells me to go, I can get Donald to sign the document. We can present it to you and just move forward. You have spent I understand how much time you've spent on this. I've spent a lot of time as well. At least I'm getting paid. You guys are volunteers. And so I think that the sooner we can get it done, and if we can get it done without a meeting, the better. I think we're there.
Okay.
So a quick question. Say that DOT does not accept a tight tank, and we go past the say mid, or I think I heard a date of about the 20th of September, 16th or the 20th. What happens? Does this become null and void, or do we just hope that they won't do anything?
I don't know. The agreement is still in place for sewer. It's just in that circumstance. And of course, I'm just speculating to answer your question. I don't know if there's another solution, but the best solution I can think of is that we're building the sewer line. We can't occupy the building until such time as it's constructed.
But will the town still get credit for the affordable housing?
Yeah, so they have filed for the affordable, the town has already filed the housing units. And currently we are under safe harbor. So the question is through this whole COVID mess, they've been giving extensions. So I don't know if this is the final extension. I suspect they'd be able to get one more, but this is to get it to count on the 2020 census, which is different than getting it counted for the state. It'll be counted for the state. We're trying to get it on the census so that it counts towards grants moving forward.
It's going to be counted. It's going to be counted. If that's your question, Bill, it will be counted.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they, you know, the sort of the pinnacle reason for doing this is affordable housing. And if we don't get affordable housing, we shouldn't be doing it.
Right. And we agree. And it's going to be counted one way or the other, whether it's September, October, November, or any other time. When it goes online, it will be affordable. These will be affordable units. 20% of them will actually be affordable, and 100% will count towards your inventory.
Right. So that gets the town over the safe harbor thing, and they reapply for safe harbor. So that gets us over our 10% requirement.
I have a simple question, and that is, are 4 units going to be affordable or 5 units going to be affordable?
5.
5.
I'm sorry, I said 20. I meant to say 25. Sorry, Wayne.
Thanks.
Yep.
Such a small number that I wouldn't want to lose one.
One is important because 1 means the difference of 4 or 20, right?
Right.
So yeah, good catch there. Thank you, Wayne.
Can I ask just one quick question before you guys wrap up? With the affordable housing piece there, my understanding is it's either two ways you go about it. So you either get it deeded or however you're allowed it for 30 years or in perpetuity. And I'm just wondering how it was determined to just go with the 30-year option.
So I'm not sure. So the town hired a consult. Well, Donald has paid for the town's consultant, the 40B consultant, I think around the time of the ZBA hearing, maybe, and since. It is, in fact, already deeded. There has been a regulatory agreement executed and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And that document, I don't know if it says in perpetuity or not. I think it does, but I think it says in perpetuity, but there's always a question of whatever the regulation says at any given time, because it could be subject to change in the future. But the issue was discussed at the zoning level, and it was agreed to do it by deed, and that's what we did.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Hey, John, no, that's a good question. So, I mean, if it is, could we check on that? Because if it's only 30 years, we're probably 2 censuses away from being in the hole again if the 20 gets minused, in a couple of decades. Is it possible to confirm that?
Yeah, so the Housing Trust would have that information for you. I know I'm on the Affordable Housing Steering Committee, and we're doing the same thing with Habitat. I don't believe Habitat is in perpetuity either. I'd have to double check on them. It's usually something you work with through Mass Housing is usually who does the counting and for how long. So I can get those questions.
But it's a done deal at this point anyway, though.
Yeah, it's all done. Yeah.
It's done. The paperwork's over. It's deeded.
Yeah.
So just one other request from Rod and Jeff, if you could include me on the agreement. I just haven't been in the correspondence on, the agreement you guys are talking about.
I'll leave it to Rod, and unless, Rod, you want me to just include Brian on it now. Sometimes Brian, lawyers, unless they're directed otherwise, will just be between themselves. But I'll totally defer to Rod on that. Whatever you want to do, Rod.
Well, why don't Jeff? Why don't you and I work it out, and then we'll distribute it to the whole cast.
You got it.
Thanks.
Please get Brian a copy of what it is
Yep.
today.
Of course, is before it's executed, Brian needs to see the whole agreement.
Yeah.
And have an opportunity if there's something in there. Right? I think that's what.
Yeah, it's just that, the devil's in the details of like reading meters in the futures, in the future that's going to be tied to some sort of payment. That comes down to, either the town operator or town staff. And if that kind of stuff's in there, it's important to just go through how it's going to work. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, so we can see if we can do this in the next few days, and we can
Move
certainly
on.
get it, and
Yeah.
we could
Yes.
move forward.
Okay, so Lisa, do we have somebody else that wants to get on, right?
Yes, so I have Andrew Gallagher waiting to talk about Diab Lanes.
So Bill, are we concluded with this?
Yeah, I think we're done. Yep.
Okay. All right, so we have those 4 changes, and Rod will get them off between Rod and Jeff. They can get a clean executable document to us.
Okay, you don't feel the need that you need to vote any of this. It's just.
No, we've already voted on most of the points, so I think it's just, tweaking it.
You got it. Okay, well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, Diab.
All right, so I am going to promote Andrew to panelist.
Okay,
And so what's going on here is that I'll let Andrew explain the
It has to do, I think, with when do you put the sewer into the houses that you're going to build, and
Andrew, you can, if you have a camera, you can start your video and also unmute yourself. There you are.
Awesome. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you for meeting me today. I'm Andrew Gallagher. I'm a custom home builder doing some work in Cohasset right now. I am at this meeting to discuss my request to extend the deadline of mid-September for the connection fee for 9 and 15 Diab Lane. Because of COVID and delays with the architects, we don't think that the mid-September deadline is doable. I know I had reached out last week with the help of Paul Davis to see what the definition of connection was to this. And I guess according to the building commissioner, it was into a foundation, just between delays and everything. We're just looking for an extension for this. I know you guys have given a few in the past.
Like about 7.
Yes, so I know I've been hearing a little more and more as we do this. So I know you guys are probably very anxious to get going on this, and I know it's I've heard from really everyone that you guys have given a few. So I don't know if you guys would be more willing if it did put up a bond to put this in, essentially get a 6-month extension for this to get these 2 lots extended. And just to make sure that it actually gets done on this one, to put up let's say a $5,000 bond towards each property, just to ensure for you guys that we're not coming back in 6 months looking for another extension.
So a couple of questions. Have you purchased the properties from Mr. Shannon?
I'm in the process of that.
And did he tell you that last January we had a last final never again come to our door, that this was the last connection delay that we were ever going to give him?
I did not know it was that to that extent.
Because this has been going on, Wayne, what, 2.5 years, 3 years? And every time, and I'm not throwing rocks, but we'd come up with, there would be a different reason. And, quite frankly, there's a lot of money involved that the sewer ratepayers are questioning, they're not questioning us, but, if this came out, well, how come you're letting somebody delay this long? It's not, we're not throwing rocks at you because you're sort of just got into this thing. But
yes,
in my opinion, if what you're saying is true, and I'm going to believe it is, as far as you having to take a 6-month delay, Matt should be paying the difference, not us.
I'd like to add that we would give an extension based on one thing, that the current charge for a sewer connection is paid in advance and taken care of.
So
So
the current charge, which is how much?
how much is it now? Well,
What, 37?
37.
$37,000.
500 for one EDU per home.
And then you can have a year if you want.
Yeah.
No, that's a
So
good,
with
that's a good.
that, so if we didn't have an extension, would we still have the ability to tap into the sewer for these 2 lots?
You would have to submit
A
another
new application, yeah.
with the application fee and the connection privilege fee.
Yes, because I know the connection was always kind of a confusion thing on that with the definition of a connection. And I think that's when the building commissioner, I think, might have stepped in last week and said that he wanted to be connected into a foundation. So I know we were, kind of proposing to connect to the sewer tap, bring it into our property, and then, within, as soon as we can, once you get the foundation in, within the next few months, make the connection into the foundation. I didn't know if that's, still standing, or if we can do the sewer tap, have a building permit application, pending.
The thing is, it will be your responsibility to pay to get from if there's no tap to the edge of the property, to pay for that tap from the middle of the street over to the property line, and then for all expenses to go up to the house and into the foundation.
Yes.
So, the fee that we're charging is a fee that is set up to allow that money to go into the operating accounts of the sewer department to keep the system working and fixed up and all that other stuff. It's not a street opening permit fee that is directed just to sewer that you're paying us so that we pay to bring the sewer across the street. Okay?
Correct.
Just so you know where you are. And over the last couple of months, I guess the seller has been dealing with different people, and we've dealt with their attorney, and we said, we've been making this known, and it's, now it's a situation of something has to happen, meaning we don't want this to just keep going back and forth, asking for extensions. You want an extension because you're not sure that you're going to be able to do it. If you don't get an extension, or your attorneys might be, and everything is known by the seller. Every single thing is known by the seller, and he's just determined to delay and delay and delay and delay, and just everything is Mickey Mouse.
Yes.
That's the stuff.
Yeah, and I would agree with Wayne's. If you want to pay the full going rate today, then you could take a year.
The seller should be paying it.
Yeah, well, exactly. The seller should be paying, not you guys.
Yeah. So the EDU that was paid already for this property, I guess, would not be extended. So has the I guess I was under the impression the EDU had been paid from the previous remaining EDUs that were remaining from the property at the end of Diab Road.
Lisa, do you know what was paid?
So the 3 EDUs that Matt Shannon had on for 3, 9, and 15 Diab Lane were from the old Templar house. He had extra EDUs that he didn't use, and he got permission from the sewer commission to transfer that to the Diab Lane lots. And he had a deadline to connect, and he missed it. And he had another deadline to connect, and he missed it. I think there might have been 3 extensions.
No, there's been 7 or 8.
Oh, yeah,
it's the case of wanting to use something that is 20 years old that cost, the town paid half, he paid half of $6,000. So he paid about $3,000. And then having this asset that he can go to any lot that is totally non-buildable and everything else with all ledge and everything else, and then be able to use that $3,000 EDU to do it. And it has turned out to be something that is just not equitable. It's not, we gave extension, and it got to be that this has been something now that is so overdone that it isn't, it's just not acceptable anymore.
So are you purchasing the lots and you're looking for this to be transferred to you?
Correct.
So our deal was with Matt. He was to complete this by September and he's not. So I would view this as a new applicant and just to pay the 37.5
Right.
and move on. I don't,
You get the delta from Matt, because Matt, clear as day, you know, he knows exactly what's going on, and I find it odd that he wouldn't have told you about it.
And to pay $37,000 for $1.5 million house is not a big amount of money. Or whatever, $2 million house you're gonna build, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
it's just not fair to anybody not to do what's right.
Yeah, it's been tough with the COVID, with, just the price of the houses and the construction, and then just the delays for, every reason under the sun, that seems like we keep getting delayed for this.
Yeah,
So-
did everything go down? Everything?
Right. Well,
Go down.
materials, the cost of the construction of the houses is skyrocketed. I mean, the cost to build a house, I'm just finishing up a small subdivision I did with, the Davises over on King Street by the water treatment facility. And, we're wrapping up the last house in the next week or so. And, the last house cost, substantially more than the house before. And, getting everything from, sign offs to material to, everything is just, everything's just been delayed so much, over the last, feels like the last 6 months have been, kind of struggling for everything, everything's gone to Zoom meetings and whatnot. So, COVID has definitely delayed it. And, we've been talking about this. I didn't realize that this was, the final extension for this. I think if we knew that it was that serious, 37,000 plus, everything else. So you're looking at, between the two lots, almost $80,000. It's, it's a substantial number when you look at it that way. I know, like you said, for $1.5 million house, the houses do cost a substantial amount of money to build. Obviously, you guys know that. There's a lot of, underlying costs, and, we're hoping just to transfer this and, have that as something to help us and, kind of get this project moving. I know you guys have been, extending this for years, and, as Lisa was mentioning to me last week, it's been a lot. And what you guys are mentioning to me now, it's been a lot. And I know it seems like Matt isn't your favorite person, it seems like, for extending this so many times, but we're just trying to do the right thing and get these moving and get these lots resolved.
Yeah, I'd go back to my earlier statement. You should be talking to Matt on this, and he should be the one paying for it.
Andrew, one question. How much, if you were to do this with a PNS, how much could you do by the deadline?
The conservation is the one thing in limbo. There's a temporary conservation agent, and so we don't know. Part of the stormwater has already been approved. A lot of the conservation has been approved. The footprint that Matt was originally planning on putting on this house, we're going to do a smaller footprint. We're just going to go a little bit smaller. So we do have to have an amendment to the conservation plan because there's a temporary conservation agent in. We don't know if we can make that decision administratively or if it has to go to a board meeting. When Brendan was the conservation agent, that was more of an administrative issue he could take care of, and we could essentially get this thing moving very quickly. But to the thing to get a little bit of the ledge taken care of, get the building permit turned around, the conservation, and then get the foundation in, then we can kind of bring our tap in. It would be quick. We were asking for 6 months just to make sure we're never coming back to you guys again. But we could essentially do one probably within 3, and the second one, we're working on one right now and have everything ready to submit to building department for a permit. And then the second one, we're just wrapping up the plans and just have to go through the engineering. We're dealing with Morse Engineering on this. So Jeff and Greg have been working diligently trying to just get everything wrapped up so we can submit it to the conservation and the building department. It really, the conservation is the wild card. So we don't know if we're gonna have to, make an administrative decision or if it has to go to one meeting or two. And so that's really the wild card that we have.
Well, the decision from here is that you have till that date, and that date, the permit is rescinded, if that's the right word, and that you would have to reapply.
Okay, and the connection.
You would be able to get a permit. You would be able to, but it would be at the new rate.
Okay, and the connection would be into a foundation, not just into the property.
It'll be the same way it is. If
It's
you
right now,
to meet the deadline now, you'd have to be from the street to the house, inside the foundation.
Yeah. So not just the location of the foundation, into an actual foundation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right, I guess we'll talk to Matt and we will just have to go from there.
Good luck.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Thank you. So the only other thing that we had was just the next steps regarding the grinder pump, town-owned grinder pump program. I have a stack that need to be signed. I think that we should just divvy it out to the three of you to sign, if that's acceptable, Rod.
Yeah, we had authorized any commissioner, any commission member to execute the document on behalf of the commission to save your hands.
So that'd be like 100 for each of us, right?
Pretty much, yes.
I'll go get some new pens. Just tell me when I can come by.
And Lisa
I can
can,
include a pen. I'll
Moving.
include a box.
and Lisa will notarize them
I'll notarize,
with
yes.
her newfound status.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while.
Rod, do you know, I could, you know how I have for a notary, I have a book that I have to acknowledge what I notarize. I can just attach an Excel spreadsheet, wouldn't I be able? Rather than handwriting everything in?
Yeah.
Cool.
Should we do a motion to confirm that September 15th was the absolute deadline?
September 16th, yep.
You know, for the, I mean,
Well, I thought we did too, didn't we, in January, Wayne? And it might have been just the two of us at that point, agree that was when we had the meeting with Matt Shannon and his attorney, and they wanted that extension.
Right.
And then I think we settled on the 16th of September.
We did, yes.
right.
Okay,
I just want to make sure
I believe
that,
I was on that call as well.
okay.
so,
I remember the deadline.
but we did have correspondence with an attorney who was for a different person to buy it than this person.
Right.
That we explained what it is that they had to do, and then maybe the deal fell through because of whatever, but
Yeah.
But I believe that deal still went through. So that was,
a different line.
Andrew
One of the
Gallagher,
properties- Yeah, one of the properties he did sell that was recorded
Yeah.
in, paper.
number three was sold
Mm.
to somebody out of state. And it's, so Andrew was just talking about number 9 and number 15.
Okay, but what, on the one that sold, doesn't that have to be connected by the 15th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so there should be, and how would we collect on it if they don't do it?
When they come in with for a building permit,
Yeah.
I sign off on building permits for sewer connection or for sewer. And that'll be the flag right there.
Yeah, so we should anticipate another meeting then, right, on this?
Yep,
Right, but I mean, we would have to,
it'll be the same thing.
they were aware of exactly what it was that they had to do. And I just, I'm just getting,
The thing on this is, which is interesting, is that, Matt could probably be in some legal jeopardy if he hasn't told anybody. And certainly the real estate agent, if they haven't said anything, could be in jeopardy as well. You can't hold off information when somebody's buying something.
but I'm wondering whether or not us signing off on the permit for the first lot, for number 3, whatever, allows them to not have a time frame to connect up.
No, we didn't
No.
sign off on we signed off on sewer connections contingent upon a connection by September 16th. And that's what that letter said. And
What happens if they don't make it?
well, it was explained to the Realtor that it needed to be,
And And I discussed that with the attorney for the buyer of number 3.
Okay.
Well, he said, well, do you think I can get an extension beyond the 16th? And I said, I don't think so. So,
Well, again, they've got to go back to Matt Shannon. I mean, if he hasn't fully given them the ground in front of them as what they're buying, I mean, that's his responsibility, not ours.
Okay. I guess it would go to, we wouldn't give an occupancy permit if they didn't pay the final amount.
Oh, we wouldn't give them a connection? Yeah.
I wouldn't sign the permit. I wouldn't sign the building permit. I'll put it as incomplete when that comes through for number 3, number 9, and number 15, unless they have a new application, if it's beyond the September 16th.
If it expires, they just got to come back and reapply and pay the
Yeah.
37.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Now what are we going to do with our lives? Huh?
Okay,
All this extra time?
meetings, next meeting?
Do we have to, you sent out like 3 months worth of board meeting minutes.
I have, yeah.
Do we vote to approve those all now, or do you just,
No, that would be great if we can vote to approve them, if you had a chance to review them.
I have. I think I sent mine already into you.
You did.
I wasn't sure if you're asking us to approve them individually and let you know they're approved, or do we have to vote on them?
See, we've always done them individually, so that so it looks like we're all looking at them, and then you just, well, I'm good with it or not. So.
Okay.
So you don't want to vote in a meeting to approve them?
No, I don't. We never have. We've always just done individual approvals.
Okay.
I mean, because the back of this, and it may take precedence, Rod, you can say it, is we're being recorded.
Yeah.
If somebody really wants to find out what happened, they just ask for this.
Okay, so I'm letting you know I approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you.
Did you want to discuss gravity versus pressure at all, or?
No, I think we wait till we get their stuff, and then you tell us what's in
Yeah,
the
but
best interest of the town.
I'd like to hear a little bit, just very short, on what you think
Yeah,
about.
I got to get off at 12:30. That's my thing.
Okay, because what time is it now?
12:22.
Okay, so I vote.
Well-
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of things I handed out relative to pros and cons, but the bottom line is they're building a gravity sewer that's very shallow. So it's very doubtful that abutters would directly connect to that and save money with a gravity connection. A lot of the abutters are kind of far back anyways. So I would anticipate that the abutters would probably have to put in grinder pumps and pump it over to the street in order to make a connection. You're not going to be able to go, you could probably extend this gravity sewer maybe down to the entrance of the shopping mall. You could never get it going all the way down to Sawyer, because again, it's so shallow and there's a drop in the grade from the entrance down to Sawyer Street. You'd have to probably put this gravity main like 9 feet deep in deep groundwater, in order to get it to go gravity all the way to Sawyer Street. So right now, they only have it very shallow. I don't think anyone's really going to be connecting up to it by gravity. Might be like one home on the south side of Route 3A that might be able to get in. But everyone else along the route probably will have to use a force main and pump into the system.
Now, one quick question about that. Does that require a manhole to pump into rather than directly into a gravity main?
It can be done with or without.
Oh, it can, okay.
Yeah. The only thing is, it is a live tap when you're doing the pressure main connection, unless you extend the service off. And at this point in time, I wouldn't recommend extending the service off. So it'd probably be a live tap on the main. But given we only have one connection on this, it should be an easy thing to work around. The engineer did say there's a 28-foot drop, and that's true. It is going to want to drain itself out, but as soon as you turn on the pumps, it's going to reach the scouring velocity and scour the pipe. So I mean, you can pump downhill. You just can't have an oversized force main, and that really is what the key issue is if you have a force main, it has flow limitations. With the gravity main, really, you could get more flow in there than the plant could ever handle by itself, you know, so you do have a lot of extra capacity in a gravity main if people get the flow to the location. On the force main, you do have a limited amount of capacity. You know, just in the velocity range, you can maybe increase it from, 3 feet per second to 9 feet per second and get 3 times the capacity out of it. But you can also, if you're pumping into the system, not every pump is going to be on at the same time either. So you could extrapolate that to where you could get a fairly significant increase in flow in the force main. And, that has in itself positive and negative aspects. If you want more flow or more capacity built into the system or not.
All right. Okay, but again, it goes back to sort of our position that you've got to review this. I don't want these guys just to tell us what we're doing.
I did.
I know Brian had gave his opinion as well. I know the town's the one who has to live with the line, right, to maintain.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And, for the most part, force mains, unless they break or unless someone hits them, there really isn't a lot of maintenance there. We're pumping downhill. We don't have any air release or anything that we'll have to deal with. As Wayne mentioned earlier, with a force main, you can go around utilities much easier without much issue. My general recommendation is force main. I think it's a cheaper alternative too for the contractor. You put gravity sewers out there, you worry about II, you have manholes to maintain, you have covers to maintain. You have a lot more to maintain and inspect, but you are able to inspect it, I guess, better because you have access to it.
Okay. What does the 17th look like for everybody for a meeting?
What day is it? Is it back to Tuesday or no?
Back to Tuesday, yeah.
Okay. 17th.
August when?
17th.
17.
Okay, yep,
All right, 10 a.m.
sounds good.
Yes.
And my final thought, or other business, Lisa, have you heard from Brian or from Chris Senior on regional sewer and what's going on with that?
I have not. I think Brian's still hanging on.
Yeah.
Brian?
Yeah, I'm still here. Right. So there haven't been any, I guess, formal discussions between, town to town, but I think there's been informal discussions between selectmen and town managers, but there's been no meeting like we had in Situate a few months back. And I guess the next step would probably be to have another one of those meetings just to say, check where we're at.
Yeah, no. So that thing that I asked Lisa to send out, and Dan, you were asking about it. It came from a town resident asking what's going on about regional sewer, and I've gotten buttonholed several times. All of a sudden, it's starting to percolate again. I don't know why, but been buttonholed a few times by folks saying, "What's going on with it? I don't want it." But there's a I don't want crowd and I want a crowd. So I don't have anything to say. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, no, I think that the way I see it is, I think we should start moving forward, regardless. The next kind of intent of sewering for the commission was South Main Street, whether it's part of connecting to North Situate or not. I think that seemed to be the consensus on where we want to expand to in the future. So it makes sense to go forward on that for a couple of reasons, just because that was the intent. And number two, South Main Street's falling apart. It was on the list to pave 3 years ago. And at some point, we're going to get to the point where either we're going to be doing a lot of temporary patching or we need to pave it.
Yeah. Right.
So I think the sooner we get that going, the better. And just back to the, I guess the gravity and force main conversation. It's there are pros and cons to both. I just having some dealings here. I think if the wastewater would see light of day for a few seconds or minutes in Tupelo pump station, then it probably wouldn't see atmosphere again until Pleasant Street, where it hit a gravity main. So just for the fog reason alone, I'd kind of lean towards gravity, because then you can pinpoint the source a little bit better. Whereas if it presented itself on the other side of town by Pleasant Street, there's deniability.
Yeah. All right, well, we can look at that. My big thing is, my concern was having, the developer tell us what they're gonna do, and then we have to live with it, so.
Yeah, right. I think we choose, but there's pros and cons to both,
Yeah, all right,
like Dan said.
all right. Anybody else have anything?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
If any of the members have any comments on